Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. There was a lot of good, and there was plenty of bad for Michigan. And Dill, I'll say this: if Michigan had lost that game, as Michigan fans, we'd be talking about the bad right off the bat. But what I want to stress here, man, is yes, there was a lot of bad, and you can point to the turnovers, and you can point to special teams, and you can point to the fact that we continue, Dill, to be the worst team in the country on fourth downs, and it's really not even all that close. There was so much good, and I know it's popular to talk about the bad, and we'll talk about the bad because you got to get the bad cleaned up. If you want to beat Ohio State at the end of the year, you can't have that bad. I thought at stretches of what we saw in Wrigley Field, it was the best version of this Michigan offense. We'll start with the positives because Michigan won this football game. We'll get to the negatives. Before we do, and as always, to the Michigan fans, it is an open invitation to let it fly in the comment section. Like, Dill, we're Michigan fans. We're friends with a lot of Michigan fans. And, hey, every Michigan fan you talk to has got a different take and a different feel for this football team and what we just saw. Y'all let it fly. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll say this, man. It been really fun talking about this team in 2025. It's been very frustrating at times too, and it continues to be frustrating, but I get the sense watching a young football team grow up. And I think to a lot of Michigan fans that follow this and know what this roster is, they recognize it's young. They recognize it's a team that continues to grow, but it's been fun. Though I'm going to give you the T-box right off the bat here. Biggest take. Let's start with this Michigan offense. And, hey, let's start with the positives because, again, I thought at times in that football game, you saw the best version all year from this Michigan offense. Biggest takeaways, what you got for us?
Well, like just trusting Bryce to play quarter, like
Let it rip, man.
A passing attack that was not too screen heavy or too really safe passes heavy. Like they let him run the RPO game. I felt like it was really effective through most of the game. I know everyone's going to point to the interception late, and that is a really poor decision. But for the most part, he was kind of on point with it. It was getting the things when the run game wasn't exactly humming maybe in that first half, getting the things that kept Michigan on schedule for the most part, and they were able to march the ball up and down the field for the most part. Like those drives, like, I mean, you got to make that field goal, obviously. You score a touchdown on that next drive. To me, they were moving the ball pretty much all game, and I felt like a lot of it was because they finally let Bryce just play quarterback like normal quarterbacks should be asked to play.
Bill, it's the first thing I have in my notes. We let him rip. And go back to how we talked about that Oklahoma game in early September. And the biggest frustration a lot of us fans has not the fact that we lost that game. It was the fact that we played scared and we really tried to protect Bryce Underwood to the point where it was counterproductive, right? I wish we did more of this in September. And like, hey, he's going to make mistakes, right? We know he's a freshman. I think the reason you saw some of these mistakes is we haven't always asked Bryce Underwood to run that RPO and trust him to make those decisions. And the only way that you clean up the mistakes is you got to let this kid go make the mistakes in the first place and learn from them. And I thought you saw that. And I think if you're a Michigan fan going forward, it's, hey, we made those mistakes. We ideally can learn from those mistakes and get the best version out of Bryce Underwood for the last two games and going into 2026. But by far, the biggest takeaway for me was we let him rip because there were some throws in that game. I go to that. I was 3rd and 10, last drive of the game to Andrew Marsh on the sideline. And by the way, Andrew Marsh, we'll get to him in a second. There's maybe 5 quarterbacks in the country that can make that throw. That was a silly throw. Bryce Underwood's one of them. Like we know how talented this kid is. You got to let him go, for lack of better terms, let him off the leash, man, and let him go make those throws. Because when you continue to do that and you let him walk that line better, it's hard for young quarterbacks, right?
And I'm honestly starting getting more of the faith. Like I thought he used his legs better. Like in moments where he had plays,
I agree with that.
Try to force the ball into a bad spot. I do think you're certainly seeing the progression because there were even times earlier in this year I was like, man, I think he is a good enough athlete. Like go make some plays with your legs. It felt like I'm going to be a passer. I'm going to throw the ball. And he threw the ball really well for the most part in that game. but some big plays with his legs that I don't think we were really seeing. Like, I think you are seeing the progression again. I'm kind of with you. I think it'd speed it up if they let him play this way every game.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I really do agree with the using his legs in some big moments. Again, on that last drive, it was 3rd and 5, and look, Dom Zavada could have made that field goal. I don't know if many Michigan fans would have trusted him to make that field goal, but you go pick up the chains and make it more of a chip shot. That's big. That's really big. Now, here's the second part of it, man. We've been, and this is what frustrates me to the Michigan fans who just want to focus on the bad. Is like, are we really just going to ignore that? Hey, for the last 5 years, we've been banging for playmakers at wide receiver, man. And we just saw a true freshman go out and break the freshman record at Michigan for receptions and receiving yards. Andrew Marsh goes 12 catches, $189 through the air. That's your wide receiver 1 for the next 2 years. That quarterback wide receiver duo between Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh, it's going to feed families for the next couple of years. And I think if you're a Michigan fan, you are so fired up to see that chemistry being built. Because, again, I'll go back to this is, look, I ain't saying die against Ohio State, right? But what I'm most excited about is what this team's going to be in 2026. And it starts with Bryce Underwood at quarterback, and it starts with Andrew Marsh as that wide receiver 1, because that duo deal, it's freaking legit. And Andrew Marsh is growing up, man, becoming an absolute true wide receiver 1 in this conference. And I guess I'll give you the T-box. I'm sorry, I'm talking a little long. Thoughts on Andrew Marsh and thoughts about what you saw from Andrew Marsh?
Yeah, I think to me, you're starting to get like an all-around number 1 wideout, because it's not just like, yeah, you see him be able to get over the top on guys and make plays down the field, but also just like running clean routes. When they run that kind of rollout concept, it does feel like Andrew Marsh has a better sense and a better feel with Bryce of where he's got to get himself to his landing points. It just runs smoother with Andrew Marsh than pretty much anyone else. And I'm okay with that. Like, at this point, I think we know we're going to have a lot of new faces in that room. It'll be really nice to have one guy who is just, he's the guy. Like, we've talked about it. You wanted that number 1 to emerge, that guy on third downs in big spots who is going to be the guy. Donovan McCulley, and this is not to say like he is a bad player or anything. He's still playing well.
Yeah.
I like the fact that Andrew Marsh is kind of
and that was what we kind of said going back to the preseason is, hey, we think Donovan McCulley is really good. I'm not sure if he's a wide receiver 1 in the Big Ten. Like, Donovan McCulley's a damn good wide receiver 2. That's kind of where we're at right now, because Andrew Marsh, the wide receiver 1 of this Michigan offense, and that relationship they're building rocks. 9 of 14 on third downs. Nice job staying on schedule and moving the chains. Again, and it's to the Michigan fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of weeks, this is the epitome of what we've seen from Michigan. It's like you're the better team, but you're having a hard time pulling away in these football games because you're not doing some of the small things right, whether that's special teams mistakes, whether that's poor red zone execution. You kind of saw that again.
And there's still some things on offense that need to, like, again.
Okay, what do you want to clean up? Yeah, that's a good way to
really good. 4th down, it's just inexcusable the way they're operating on 4th down, and then also just like some like, I don't know. It didn't feel like that. And again, this is definitely Monday morning quarterbacking it, but on that reverse they ran in that end of the half kind of drive, it felt like the base was working. Like, you don't need to get tricky. I don't feel like when your base is really rocking. And I thought they started to run the ball in that drive really effectively. I still thought Bryce was pretty sharp. So that's like a frustrating one, because that's like one of those moments. A, you probably spotted them 3 points, giving that turnover away. B, you probably were headed down to put together.
The most frustrating part about the trick play is what you said. It's like we're moving the ball on offense. Everything we're doing is working. Just trust that. Why do we have to go into the bag? And now if that play works, then we're calling Chip Lindsey awesome. But I do kind of agree with you. I'm not sure if I love it right there. Offensive line was not bad. It was not a bad performance. It was probably it was meh is probably the best way to describe it. I don't think it was super clean in pass protection. I don't know.
I thought they were running some of that like heavy play action stuff. That's where the pass protection felt to me like it was breaking down. I thought pure pocket, like just clean. Okay. I thought clean pockets for most of the game. I thought for the most part that offensive line, I would have said that was a pretty clean performance. I didn't think it was meh, because again, I thought for the most part pockets were good. There were a couple plays they tried to run heavy play action that I felt like it got away from them a little bit. But I thought the base of what they were doing was really, really good.
Defense, really good. 245 total yards given up. You gave up a few explosive plays. You held a Northwestern rushing attack. And look, that offensive line's good, man. It's a really good offense. They're going to have multiple guys that are going to play in the NFL. 61 rushing yards. Dill, the defensive line for Michigan does not have a Mason Graham on the inside. You do not have a Kenneth Grant. You don't have a Chris Jenkins. You don't have a guy that feels like a first-round, top 50 NFL draft pick. It's really solid, though. And it's a lot of different guys. Like Trey Pierce and Trey Williams and Damon Payne and Rashawn Benny and Eno Etta continues to play his best football. I appreciate that, too. Like, because there's a lot of defensive lines that lack quality bodies, that lack quality depth. Michigan isn't one of those. Fit the run game up really well. On the throws that Northwestern made and beat us on, it was, all right, Preston Stone, you were 13 to 27, but for those completions that you made, like some high-level throws and some high-level catches. The last thing I think we do need to talk about is special teams. And I can live with the missed kicks. Like, that's just it is what it is. You know, Dom Zavada's made a lot of big kicks. It's frustrating that the ball is not going through the uprights as much as we're used to seeing. But, man, it's really frustrating that have we been a net positive on special teams ever in 2025? Like, it feels like we are losing points. We are losing value on special teams consistently. It obviously started with Samaj Morgan and the fumble. And look, I never do this, but I'm going to do it right now. When he fumbled and seemingly clearly got back on the ball, how does that ref just sprint into the pile and just start signaling for Northwest? They couldn't really overturn it, and I get that, but that was wild. But the fact that, hey, it's like we have Samaj Morgan's never really given us a ton of value. And I'm not trying to dump on him because that's the real popular thing to do is just dump on Samaj, and I get that. But it's like we haven't really gotten a ton of productivity out of him, and we've seen mistakes more times than we'd like. Why are we still doing that? And then Dill, the fake punt, man.
Why are you running your defense off the field? It was like 4th and inches. Everybody in college football, when you're in that spot, you just put your defense on the field and you defend against the fake because that is what can hurt you. Michigan, just like in a totally mind-boggling way, you have a tight end that you're trying to go out there. Okay, Deacon Tonelli, go try to shed blocks and like make a play. Yeah. We knew the fake was coming. They pretty much lined up right in it. You saw the fullback right over the center. That was maddening. That's one of the more frustrating moments of the season because that, like, again, I can deal with like a young guy making a mistake. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but like it is what it is.
I would be less frustrated with the Samaj Morgan fumble if it wasn't like we've seen some of that stuff.
Oh no, but that's coaching to me at this point. Like the fact that he's being given chances, everything he's done this year makes me think he does not really deserve to be on the field much.
Yeah, and again, it's I know that's the popular thing to do, and I'm not trying to be that guy.
But it just
can't happen, right? No. And then we're just not prepared for a fake punt. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like we're net negative on special teams, and that could not be any more clear. That's frustrating. All right,
honestly, it's another game similar to the Purdue game where it felt like you dominated in between the lines for the most part. And
Purdue, Michigan State, it feel like a lot of these games where it's like that you're clearly look at these numbers, man.
Double up on the yards, and you
have to go down the field in the last minute to go win a game. It's how we've talked about it all year, and eventually you hope it gets cleaned up. And the frustrating part is like it ain't getting cleaned up the way you want to see it get cleaned up. But we know here's why I'm more frustrated than I was like last year was just sadness, right? But last year's like we just knew this team wasn't all that good, specifically on offense. This year's we're better than we are. We're better than we were, just not playing up to our potential. Let's see if we can do it against Maryland. And then again, what matters most, you can probably get away with how you played against Maryland and win. You can't against Ohio State. You got to play perfect football. We'll see if we can get there. Here's the thing, though. This team's capable of it. I firmly believe that. Close it out there. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.